Good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Lawrence, and welcome to another episode of Just My Thoughts. Um, Today, I want to talk about your journey through life, right? And I'm going to try to be brief, keep it short, but we all know how my short videos go. They don't usually work out to be short, but it's always good to have a goal in mind. So, I was thinking, right? I'm like, you have what they call the hero's journey, where you're progressing through life and you're trying to improve and you're trying to overcome struggles and whatnot. And I won't get really deep into that because I can't recall enough to really go into the hero's journey. But needless to say, everybody's journeying throughout their life, right? Um, but I was thinking, I'm like, when you journey through life, maybe I shouldn't say traditionally, like if you're looking at television and culture and stuff like that, um, it's more of an extroverted journey. So you're trying to get, oh, I gotta get the mansion, and I gotta get like the newest Mercedes LLR or whatever, I need like 200 million in the bank. I gotta have the sports wife, the 2.5 children. Like, there's like this checklist of stuff you gotta get right, and that's the more known journey through life. Okay. Um. Now, I'm not knocking that. I certainly can understand the appeal of that, and um, financially, where you would get on that journey would be nice. All kinds of financial security. How people go about executing that journey gets weird. I don't want to really get into too much into that, but my thing is, often, right, you will find, I don't want to say often, sometimes you will find people who actually do really well in that extroverted journey, rock star or rapper or movie star or whatever, right? And then we've all seen this where such and such, like Billy Blue Balls, like commit suicide, and you'd be like, why? What? Dude, you had it all. You were at the top of the mountain. Why on earth would you commit suicide? And it's just like, doing that extroverted journey, you never worked on, well, I suspect at least, you never worked on your introverted part, right? So, like, how you were developing externally, internally, you wasn't growing, you wasn't developing, you wasn't handling issues you had in there, you know. So, it kind of, that ended up resulting in, taking you out of the game. Now, on the other side, let's say you're a very introverted person, it's probably a lot easier for you to do an introverted journey, right? And you're growing, you're trying to develop character, develop your moral standings, really develop into the person that you want to be. Um, on the inside, I want to be a man of honor. It's very, certain things are very important to you. Um, that's good. Me myself, I'm a very introverted person. That's always been something I've strived for. And the thing is, sort of like the guys on the extroverted journey, you will sometimes strive to build up that introverted part of you, that introverted journey, and fail to execute on the extroverted side. So you might become this like great, well-rounded person, but you have nothing externally to kind of show for it because you are not developing that external excuse me, that external part of you. um and I don't know, I was thinking about this week, right? And I'm like, man, it's just such a balancing act. And like I said, usually people will go one side or the other. And I recognize that I'm a very introverted person. But I also, live in reality. As much as I live in my head, I live in reality. And I would like to see some kind of physical manifestation of my thoughts outside of reality. You know, um, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm doing okay in reality, but I'm certainly not where I would like to be. And yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like, it's hard to kind of toggle back and forth, you know. But I don't really want to be. Now that I realize it, I don't really want to be limited on one side of the board. Um, and I don't really have anywhere that I'm going with this. This is just a current thought that I'm kind of rolling around. Yeah, and yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. Like, there, I wish there were more people I can kind of discuss these kind of things with. But it's been my experience. Most people don't really have interest in this. They've never considered this. Even if you bring it up to them, they're just not really interested in going into it. And you don't want to. You don't want to. Worst, the last thing you want to do is try to like get somebody to talk about something they really don't want to talk about, or even think about something they really don't want to think about. Like, you're just wasting your time and their time at the same at the same time, you know. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about that. And like I said, it's something I'm still processing and still working out. Yeah. So anyway, I guess I'll just switch topics. My wife said something to me interesting last week, right? It might have been last week. It might have been a week before last. I don't know. It's been in my head though because I thought it was so humorous. I would not have defined it like that, but I understood what she meant when she said it. Right? She said, "My wife." She told me. She says, "You take up a lot of room in the physical realm and in the intellectual realm, right?" And I'm like, all right, well, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're basically saying I'm big, and I'm like, she was like, well, I mean, yeah, that's not really what I'm saying. What she's saying is like, I tend to kind of when I'm sitting down, like I'm stretching my hands out, like my legs are open, like I'm just really just taking up space. Unnecessarily, I suppose, to perhaps to her eyes. I like to be comfortable. I will stretch out. That's neither here nor there. I've heard there's a term for it. that some of the feminists have come up with for it. I forget what it's called, but it's like a guy just taking up a necessary room or whatever. Whatevs. Um, yeah, that part was humorous, right? But the other part, the taking, the intellectual realm part, right? So she's like, you ask me questions that I have to stop and think about before I can answer, right? And she's like, I don't always want to do that. I don't always want to do that. And she's like, and not only do I not always want to do that, it's about subject matter that I'm just not even interested in. So she's like, you're forcing me to think and consider about things that I don't really want to, and then give you an answer. And she's like, that's a lot. Like you're just taking up a lot of space on the intellectual realm, and she finds it very annoying. um, so I've been thinking about that. All right. So first off, I take it as a compliment. I'm not upset at all about that. I'll take that as a compliment. But secondly, I understand what she means, and I could see how it would be frustrating, right? And I'll give you an example. There's a guy I work with who does something somewhat similar, but definitely not the same, right? So my wife is like, hey, you're making me think about stuff that I don't want to think about, and I really gotta consider it before I can give you an answer, right? So it's making her deep dive, basically, right? This guy I work with, he will ask me a question that is just obvious, but he won't take the time to look. Like, he won't. It's sort of like he's outsourcing the work to me. So, oh, where's such and such at? Or it's such and such on break, And it's like, well, there are clear indications of the answer to that question. And not only that, you could just go and see, but instead you would just ask me. That shit irritates the fuck out of me. And it's irritating because I myself are usually in some kind of thought. So when you come up to me and ask me something, especially something as simple as something you clearly could have figured out on your own, if you had simply tried, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't require any thought or anything. You could have just looked and seen. But regardless, right? That shit irritates me. I don't like it. I don't like it. Because I'm like, dude, I'm not doing your thinking for you. Now, I would not classify that the same as what I do. And I know you're probably like, well, anybody would say that, of course, but I really wouldn't, because I am more interested in your opinion. I'm not interested in you telling me some type of fact about reality or something like that. Like, I'm just interested in your opinion on a topic. I'm interested in collecting your thoughts and analyzing said thoughts. But I'm not interested in, like, hey, where's the peanut butter and jelly? Like, some simple shit like that, I will go and just find it myself. And then maybe as a last resort, when I've looked everywhere and I can't find it, then I'll ask. Right? I don't know. I would consider those things different. Some people might disagree with me on that. To each his own. Everybody's got their own opinion. But that's just my thoughts on it. But Yeah, yeah, I do find that irritating. But I've recently been thinking about this, and I'm like, it is hard to find people to talk to, right? And now that I'm thinking about it, that could be partly why I'm doing this YouTube channel, because I got nowhere else I could share these thoughts, you know. But yeah, I mean, there are two people that I'm pretty close to that I can talk about stuff, and they'll entertain it. You know, they are entertain it. They might have something to contribute. Actually, they usually always got something to contribute. Um, so there's that. But besides those two, there's really nobody. Um, I don't know, man. Like, that's definitely not the usual for most people, or at least I wouldn't think so. At least, um, I mean, most people got a lot of friends you can talk to about different things, and you have certain common. Excuse me. You have certain common interests. I don't know. That's not really. It's not really my category. It's not really where I fall. Uh, I do find myself. It's weird. I go back and forth, right? Like sometimes I won't talk. Like I'll answer whatever questions are asked of me, but I won't really try to engage in conversation. And the reason is because there are most people aren't interested in what I want to talk about or interests and whatnot, right? But what ends up happening is it builds up and builds up and builds up, and then I get what I call thought vomiting, right? Where you just, you throw up your thoughts on people. So it took me a while to even notice this was happening. What would happen is, after not talking to somebody for, not really expressing myself to people for so long, when I engage in some conversation, usually just at a random moment, I will just, somebody be like, hey, how's it going, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. How you feel about blah, blah, blah? Dude, after that point, I'm just sort of like, this, that, whatever, this, that, and then the person is usually just kind of like sitting there like, okay, good talking to you. Always a really deep conversation. It's always interesting talking to you, like, because you kind of just threw up all these thoughts that you're retaining, and not even ones that you're retaining. It's just you haven't talked so much, you haven't really expressed yourself in so long that even pertaining to like whatever they were talking about, you just start flooding, or at least I just start flooding forth with like different thoughts. And like usually when you're having a conversation, it's like back and forth, back and forth. This topic, this topic, this topic, this topic. And what I noticed for me, if I get a build up, I will go this topic, but then this topic will branch and it keep branching off, right? So it start off as one thing, end up in 5 different, layers. And yeah, it's It's not pretty. I first noticed it with one of my brother-in-laws, and it was like I said, he was like, that's, it's always good talking to you, always really deep, man. And I think I kind of like just kind of startled him, honestly. But it's something I've been noticing since then. Like, if every so often I don't really talk, it'll come out. I've heard someone else refer to it as cauldering, like how you got a cauldron and you're like boiling, I don't know, spells or soup or whatever. I don't know. I always think of a witch when I think of a cauldron, but I mean, I guess old timey times you might use them to make soup or something. It's like the real big pot that you have over the fire and everything's stewing down and boiling. It's like that. So yeah, I that is an issue I don't really know what to do with, because it's like, okay, if you don't, if you restrain yourself and you don't, like, let's say it's a pipe, right? You like let's say you got like, everybody's got like a water hose, a water tap on the side of their house, and you just open the nozzle and water comes out. You close it, it doesn't come out, right? So let's say, most of the time, what I was doing was just keeping the nodule off. And then when I had to open it, boom, at a random time, all this like water would come out, right? And it's like, all right, you don't want to do that. So my alternative was to try to talk more so you don't get as much buildup. And now I get the overwhelming people. So now it's like, all right, instead of getting a buildup, whenever I open it, I'm still just randomly hitting people with a lot of water, right? So I don't know what to do with. I don't know what to do about that. I don't know what to do about that. Like, things have changed. I've changed. The personality thing has changed a lot of me. Like, just find out information and growing and processing has changed away a lot of things I view. So it's like, I'm seeing it now. It's possible I've been doing this all along and just not seeing it. It's possible. I don't think that's accurate though, because even my wife would tell me like, oh well, give me like 2019 version of you, because he wasn't doing this. You know what I mean? Like, and I can definitely see the progression of me as I look back. So I don't think I've been doing this all this time. But I don't really know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with this. I mean, what do you do? Like, I'm consuming a lot more information, which I think definitely has a lot to do with it, because basically I'm taking in all this information, and I'm not sure, but as I'm speaking of it now, I wonder if there's some kind of balance between how much information you take in and how much you have to put out. Like, if you take in so much that is boiling over on the inside, you have to put some out, maybe? Or at least you have to, yeah, like you have to level off that pressure. So, yeah, I don't know what to do with that, because no one else is interested. And most people just aren't interested in the topics, or the thoughts that I have. And I don't want to go around ear raping people, forcing them to listen to my thoughts. And again, that might be partly why I'm doing this YouTube channel. I don't know. I remember originally when we started the channel, it was me and my man J.P. Esteban, and we used to talk, and we used to just like, it was weird. Like, I noticed that when we used to talk, it felt like throwing the ball back and forth, right? I can't really explain it. Like, you know, you throw a ball to somebody, right? All right, so I'm gonna give you the quick. I'm gonna try not to sound like a dick, but I'm gonna give you a quick thing, right? My one friend, I could throw the ball to him, and he'd catch it. He understand it. He can process it. Awesome, right? He wasn't really throwing the ball back. And it's not like he lacks the capability. Like, this guy's probably one of the, if not the smartest guys I've ever met in my life. He don't lack the capability. But he wasn't really throwing the ball back, right? And most people can't even catch the ball, so I'm certainly not complaining. But then with Esteban, right? I throw the ball to him. Not only could he catch the ball, he would throw the ball back. It was interesting. Like, I had never really experienced that before. Like, so it'd be like, I throw something to him, he catch it, throw it back, and then what ended up happening was you would get this back and forth that resulted in this, like, feel like this building of ideas, right? And that's how we started the YouTube channel. Like, we used to have those conversations, and it was like, man, let's just start putting this shit on YouTube. So that's how our early YouTube channel got started, when we started doing our show, Shoot the Shit. Yeah, those were great times. And it's interesting because I used to look back on those times and I was like, man, I miss those times. I felt like I was smarter back then than I was at the time I was considering it, right? And I was like, man, I feel like I was so much smarter back then. And those were also times where I was taking in a high point of information and then discussing said thought and ideas with Esteban and going back and forth, right? Now I also feel like I'm at a high consumption of information. And it's just me. So I'm here. I still talk to Esteban on occasion. But obviously we're not doing our YouTube show anymore, you know, COVID, whatnot. So I am here on YouTube with this sort of version, I guess, of just my thoughts, which has me here talking to you because who else am I going to talk to? Plus, I mean, it's not the only reason I do this show. I like to look back. Like, it's been my experience that it's good to record yourself and your thoughts, and then look back on them, because you would be surprised. Um, you'd be surprised at some of the things that come out of you in a moment that you just really either don't think about again, or you really hadn't considered, or you didn't even recognize was a part of yourself. It's good to record yourself over even a small amount of time. Just, like, even if you did a YouTube channel and did it private, and then we'll come back, say in a month, right? You do one of these things per week, right? And let's say you did like 10 minutes. So that's 10 minutes, say, my day of the week, right? At the end of the month, that's 40 minutes. That's one day per week. And if you look back on that, you would be so surprised about seeing yourself, and who you are. Or at least that's been my experience. But I would imagine that'd be the same for most people. So I do like that. I do like to look back on stuff, because sometimes I'm surprised when I look back, like, those were some of my thoughts, and that's how I was viewing things. Because I do find, like, I will change. My thought process will change. I may feel one way, and then eventually, years down the line, I've come to a different conclusion, which I think everybody, depending on the subject, of course, but everybody should grow. But should does not mean will, or, again, to each his own. I am kind of rambling at this point. I don't really have a good, strong subject to really come and talk to you guys about. I'm trying to think of whether there's something else I really wanted to get into. I don't know. Nothing's coming to mind. I've been on a growth and development thing far back as I can remember. I've been going through, after getting my personality type, I've been trying to go inside my own head and just sort of really pay attention at what I'm doing and when I'm doing and why I'm doing certain things. And man, it is so fascinating. So fascinating. You just see all, like, these sub programs just sort of doing their thing. Like, it's so weird. I'm telling you, man, you think, oh, okay, I'm this and I'm making this decision and that's what it is. And I'm like, that is kind of not what it is. I mean, it is, you are making a decision, but how you're coming to certain conclusions, why you're looking at certain things and not looking at others. Oh my goodness, man, there is so much going on below the surface. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, that's what I've been noticing. Like, it's so shocking. And it's weird to me. Like, people are like, wait, you're trying to see what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you can't do that. I'm like, tomato, you kind of can. And they're like, well, why would you want to do that? That's dumb. Depends on your perspective, I suppose. But I don't know. It's been it's been working for me. Um, Interesting things I've seen. Like it's weird. Like one of the things I've noticed is since looking back in the past, right? I could see I was very self indulgent, and like even now, people would tell me I'm selfish, which it certainly does not appear like that from my point of view. Like, because in your head, right? Decisions you make, decisions you don't make, what your options you're weighing and don't weigh in, and like even the options you did not make, right? So like there have been times where I will take an option that is not really preferable for me, but I might feel like, oh well, this will help them, this will work out well for them, so let's do that. And they don't know that. Like other people don't know that's what you're doing. But the minute you do something for yourself, they look at it like, oh, this guy's just selfish. Like it's so weird. Like I don't even know how you balance that out, to be honest. But either way, looking back, I can see I was so self-indulgent, right? Like I've always read books, read comic books growing up, right? And then I started reading novels, right? And then when I was younger, I don't do this anymore, but when I was younger, you know how a novel might have, it might have, all right, this is what's going on with the main character, but oh, there's this character over here and this character over here, and they're doing things, and part of the story will focus on that. I would just skip that and just focus on the main character I was interested about, and like not really read the other parts of the story pertaining to the other people. And like I said, it's very self-indulgent. Like yeah, it's weird, but yeah, I'm still the guy that's thinking about the team. I'm still the guy that's, all right, well, we gotta find a situation that works for all of us. I'm always taking everybody else into consideration. But yeah, I can be self-indulgent, but it seems like my self-indulgent only pertains to me. I will not be self-indulgent at the expense of other people. Only when it's a solo experience, then I would be self-indulgent. So it's weird. Like looking back, I could see that, and like now, that is not really the case. Now my throat's a little dry. Now that's not really the case. What I've noticed now is that self-indulgent part comes from my feeling, my FI, and it seems like I've kind of beefed up my TE, and my thinking seems more in a dominant position now. And it's like I am not self-indulgent now. And the way I can know the difference is there, my thinking has beefing up my thinking has just changed how I see things. Um, to the point where to the point where I have to re-examine so many things that I thought I knew. Right? I think I used this example, but I was flipping for an art book. I was trying to find a technique that I wanted to execute, and I have a lot of art books. So I was trying to find this technique, and as I was flipping for this one particular book, I was flipping through it, just kind of like briefly scanning, not even reading, right? And I read this book previously. I realized through flipping through it that this book is not the kind of book that I thought it was previously. Um, this book was not even truly a technique book, although it did delve into technique. Um, it was really a theoretical book, right? It was talked about theory and whatnot. Um, and it just, when I was flipping through and just made that realization, it was like, holy shit, like, all right, so it's got to the point where I don't even see things the same anymore. Because how did I read this book from cover to cover previously and not realize that? And yet now, just skimming through this thing, I made that realization. And I think that was the difference between when you are processing the information through, well, I was processing the information through my feeling and processing the information through my thinking, right? As I said, the feeling was very self-indulgent. I was probably going through there looking for something particular and not really processing the information that did not relate to what I was looking for. Very subjective point of view, very subjective pattern of logic there. And then as I come through with the thinking, now it's very objective. I'm just taking it as it is, and I'm parsing through the data, and getting my understanding that way. And that's the main difference I've been noticing between feeling and thinking is you're processing the information through a subjective lens when you're going through your feelings, and you're processing the information through an objective lens when you go through your thinking. Now, the thing is, you can process that information through an objective lens and still make a subjective decision later, based on your feelings and whatnot. But the way you process the information is very objective. So I don't want to make it sound like no thinkers are subjective on how they do things. It's not 100% accurate, but I can't really go too far in depth with it at the moment. So yeah, I've just noticed that the way I see things are different now. And like I said, like, I'm here having conversations about stuff that probably nobody else is interested in, and I'm reading and studying stuff that nobody else is interested in. Like I picked up a book on logic. It's a subject that I want to get more into. And it's funny, like, I had 3 people look at me like I had a fucking third eye. It was like, why do you want to learn about logic? Like they were just, what the fuck is the point of that? You know? Sorry, I'm trying to stop cussing that shit on that. What is the point of that? And my only explanation is it's an area of interest. Like, it's something I find interesting. I don't really, I'm not doing it for a class or anything like that. which maybe they would consider that, that's the only reason someone would study something like that. Now, if I was being 100% honest, yes, it is an area of interest. This is true. Mostly everything that I study is an area of interest. I don't think I could force myself to study something that I was not interested in. Yeah, I don't think I can do it. I've noticed that about the FI. If I'm not interested, I cannot force it to get on board. It's been like that since I was a young kid. But yeah, so it's an area of interest, but it's also so I can better use my thinking to better defend myself when in arguments, like logically, like sort of like a lawyer. You know what I mean? Like a lawyer could logically just like jujitsu to the ground, So yeah, I like to be able to do that on some level. Not that I'm looking to go around doing so, but it's a weakness that I've noticed in the past. Like I remember I was having a debate with a friend of mine. Like this had to be almost 20 years ago. I don't even remember what the debate was about. And his mother was a lawyer. So this guy, really smart guy, and he knew how to debate or argue or whatever, however you want to define it. And I remember at the end of that argument, I said, "Look, I don't think you're correct. However, I cannot beat you in an argument." Now, that's just how I felt. Does that make me wrong by me today? Possibly. I might say like, well, if you can't defend your argument, then you gotta at least consider the fact that you're wrong, which I agree with still, but I don't know if that really actually makes me wrong. I don't even remember what we were talking about, so I really couldn't say. But I remember that at the time, like, you have not convinced me that you are correct, but I cannot beat you in this argument. I just simply don't have the skill. Yeah. That's never really been my forte. Like, I've never really wanted to argue with somebody. But in working on my thinking and building it up, that was something I've kind of had to work on a little bit. So what I would do is I would get into these debates with guys that I work with on sports, right? Anybody knows me, I don't give a shit about sports. But it was like good. It was good logical grappling to be able to wrestle back and forth. And I'm going strictly off the logic, right? I don't pay attention to like what's currently going on in sports or whatever. But we would have these debates about who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. And I would use that logic of what I knew about both people to argue the other guys. And it's something I think I've gotten a lot better at. I was very bad in the beginning, but I think I'm somewhat decent. I mean, I'm sure I get destroyed by somebody who's actually good at it, without a doubt. But I've learned how to dissect an opponent's argument, like look at their logic and break it apart. See where their arguments are strong at, see where their arguments are weak at. I've learned how to kind of almost lead an opponent into a trap. Like it's a lot of like just practice. Um, but I've learned how to kind of grapple that. And I've also learned that certain things seem to come natural to thinkers, and doesn't really help them. The two people I'm arguing against are both feelers. Um, but I have noticed this with thinkers that certain parts of logic just seem to come natural to them. Because I mean, when I was first studying logic and I was looking into stuff, I didn't know any of the terms, but when they were explaining that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, oh yeah, I'm definitely doing that, without any kind of training or anything. Like, it was just the way my mind was naturally processing information. So it does give me certain advantages. Oh wow, this is 50 minutes. Yeah, keep it short. Oh god. Yeah, so this has been 50 minutes of me sort of rambling, talking about, I don't know, random thoughts. Alright, well, I'm gonna call this short. I'm gonna come back with some better topics from here on out. I'm a little disappointed in myself. I wish I had a better constructed topic this week. But anyway, signing off. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'm out. This was just my thoughts.